Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture.
And I'm Andy Murray from WhatCulture, and like Lieutenant Dan, I'm rolling. Shoutouts to Danny Brown. Coming up today, we are going to give you an update on Rey Mysterio's WWE future. We're going to talk about the major creative changes that went down at yesterday's tapings at the Performance Center, and on top of that, I'm going to tell you the ridiculous sum of money that Tessa Blanchard wanted to hand back the Impact World title. It's mental.
Plus, as my very crudely built box with my laptop on nearly falls on top of me, we have the original plans for the Eye for an Eye match that have been revealed. Kairi Sane may finally be done in WWE, and Vince McMahon's reaction to the falling ratings has been revealed too. This is the news.
Right, let's crack on with it. Let's kick things off by talking about Rey Mysterio. A lot of speculation on his future at the moment. A lot of things going on. He's technically working as a free agent right now. His previous contract expired. He asked Vince McMahon for a pay rise. Vince McMahon said no because of things that are going on in the world at the moment. So Rona Lisa has taken a toll on his chances of signing a longer deal. However, we've got an update here from PW Insider, who say that Rey was at the WWE tapings yesterday at the Performance Center. Now, he didn't appear directly on Raw last night. However, they taped the following next week's Raw at the same time, so he could well appear on that show. There's no indication that he is actually properly re-signed with WWE as of yet. However, that he was present in Orlando indicates that he might be part of WWE's plans going forward. It's also noted that Mysterio went to Stamford, Connecticut to continue contract negotiations last week. Again, no real word on exactly how those went, but it's a good sign that he was at the tapings yesterday. This is on the back of what happened at Extreme Rules. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that because Adam's got a lovely story all about that craziness. But, most signs at the moment are pointing towards Rey sticking with WWE, which I think most people would have predicted all along.
Yeah, you kind of assumed it, what with more weight to put behind it is the fact that, so of course, he wants his son Dominic to prosper within WWE and just foster those relationships a bit more. I felt like the thing that swung it for me last night on Raw was the fact they said, oh, his optic nerve's fine. I felt like if they said, oh, no, his optic nerve's buggered, he was off. And if it was fine, he's probably going to stick around for a bit.
Yeah.
I'm still getting over that match Sunday night. It was ridiculous. And let's talk a little bit about my story here, Andy, as the box tries to fall on top of me yet again. Stay there. Let's talk a little bit about it because according to Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Figure 4 Online's daily update, the original plans still involved Rey Mysterio, yes, losing his eye, but it was going to be, far more dramatic. They originally had scripted a scene involving prosthetics with his eye literally popping out of its socket, but Vince McMahon, of course, changed his mind, and they kept the only bit they kept of it all was Seth Rollins spewing up at ringside. Everything else was just sort of covered, and the fact that he covered his eye, and then you just sort of saw a ping pong with some red on it. Basically, it's basically the old plans change storyline again. I haven't had a chance to speak to you, Andy, about it. What did you think of the Eye for an Eye match?
I thought it was like a really good match until the finish. They really played the stipulation quite well. I think it was hard hitting. It made me feel like every drop of the ridiculously high stakes, but then he just did the finish where it was like, oh yeah, it's out. And it was kind of like, okay, cool. And then you saw the glimpse of the little ping pong ball, and it was just, I don't know, the finish I think was so disruptive that it even lost the paid live crowd from the PC and stuff. So it's a weird one. I thought in general it was a night of really good wrestling kind of undermined by weird finishes. So on the whole, I thought it was a net positive, but the ending was the ending was always going to be weird, and it wasn't quite as dumb as I wanted it to be. I wanted the eyeball hanging from a spring, like one of those goofy party goggle things. But just one of the strangest things I've ever seen on a wrestling show, for sure.
I particularly enjoyed, and a load of people pointing this out, I particularly enjoyed in the immediate aftermath when Rey Mysterio was being led away, as Brian Alvarez pointed out, with a towel over his eye. And it's after Seth Rollins has spewed up, he's just sort of leaning against the plexiglass, going through the whole, oh my God, what have I done? And one of the NXT guys just goes behind him and goes, boo, like that.
Did you notice that NXT guy was wearing a Becky Lynch t-shirt as well?
I also enjoyed.
Perfect.
I also enjoyed last night when they were doing the whole, Drew McIntyre, what's going to happen between him and Dolph Ziggler? No one cares. When he was like, you want me to tell you what stipulation I'll pick? And he paused and then said, I'm going to tell you right before the bell rings. But in that brief pause, someone, even the NXT, the paid crowd, someone went, I'm going to troll him here. Eye for an eye match.
Oh, mate, you love to see stuff like this. And, I really wanted the silly over-the-top eyeball hanging around and popping all over the place. Maybe Buddy Murphy and Seth Rollins could have played table tennis with it after the match. Why not just go all in, man? Why bail out? But hey, Vince McMahon changes his mind a lot.
Indeed, so and we have got a question regarding the future of Seth Rollins to come a little bit later on, which I'm looking forward to hearing your answer for.
Absolutely. Can't wait for that one. Speaking of Vince McMahon changing his mind, let's keep on the similar track. So, WWE had some TV tapings at the Performance Center yesterday. It was last night's Raw. It was the following week's Raw as well. However, there were apparently huge, swooping creative changes. Basically, WWE had to rethink a whole bunch of stuff because a bunch of wrestlers that they had factored into their plans were made unavailable for various reasons. This is a report from PW Insider. The direct quote is that WWE, during the process of the tapings, were deep into reworking their original plans. It's noted as well that this may also be a result of the negative reaction to the horror show at Extreme Rules block balls of End of the Fire. Although primarily, it's the personnel issues. There's also a report here from the Figure 4 Online, Wrestling Observer, Dave Meltzer, stating that WWE tore up and rewrote much of last night's episode of Raw. There was a 4-hour delay on getting started with tapings. So big changes afoot. Obviously, they're working with a reduced cast at the moment, so it's understandable. Still pretty interesting that they just left it till the last minute, though, isn't it?
I mean, it's very, very WWE to do this, of course, and there's been speculation swirling, of course, about the real reason Apollo Crews hasn't been around and defending his United States Championship. This will only fuel more speculation if more people are missing from tapings. But it's WWE, and you sense that even if they had a full crew of people and everything was back to normal, you wouldn't put it past them to just completely change all their plans the minute before the show anyway, because that's how Vince is nowadays. But one thing we can confirm as we transition to our next story is the future of Kairi Sane, because it looks like her protracted exit from WWE has finally happened. PW Insider reporting that she wrapped up with the promotion following, as Andy mentions, yesterday's television tapings, which was, of course, Monday Night Raw this week and next week. She could well feature on the 20th show, which will go out next Monday, the 27th of July. She pinned Bayley, of course, on last night's show. It's going to be the last of her current run. There was a bit of speculation that she could face Asuka at SummerSlam. This would seem to suggest that that is not the direction they are going in. But she is expected to continue a sort of ambassador role for WWE once she returns to Japan to be with her husband. Sounds like everything has sort of worked out best for everyone there, really, Andy.
Yeah, it does. It seems like a solution that is really good for everyone. Well, I mean, WWE would probably like to have Kairi around being really great at wrestling, which she is. But that being said, they haven't always used her the best on the main roster, and she's had long periods of just kind of not really doing a whole lot. Yeah, good for her. I'm glad. She just wants to go back and be with her husband, and I mean, how could you object to that? How could you object to that?
My only worry, my only caveat to all this is I read that and thought, oh, okay, so no match between Kairi and Asuka at SummerSlam. That's kind of disappointing, even though we all kind of knew that was only going to go one way. Once you assume Asuka wins that Raw Women's Championship back on next week's show, where she's going to face Sasha Banks. Stephanie McMahon made that whole announcement, etc. But my concern is, you think, okay, so she's going to be on next week's show, probably, at least giving a little bit of a pep talk to Asuka. Then she's going to be worryingly isolated whilst Asuka is busy with Sasha Banks, and there is a major contender who we haven't seen for quite some time who could well attack her. It could be Nia Jax. It could be Shayna Baszler. You sense that they aren't just going to be like, bye, thanks for everything, have a nice time in Japan. She's going to get murdered backstage somewhere.
Yeah, she's probably going to... So they're going to film some kind of angle, or they already have, because of the thing that went down yesterday. But yeah, let's see how she goes out. Very unusual for a wrestler to go out on a W. The tradition is, of course, you put someone over on your way out of the territory, so expect something to come up. Let's talk about Tessa Blanchard. Speaking about being on your way out of territories, Tessa Blanchard might be the daughter of Tully Blanchard, but it seems there's another member of the Four Horsemen, in her soul, in her spirit. She's done a Ric Flair. So in 1991, Ric Flair obviously transitioned from WCW to WWE, took the big gold belt with him. He said that WCW hadn't returned a $25,000 deposit, so he just had the belt on WWE TV. It was great. NWA champions paid that price for holding the belt. This is slightly different in that Tessa presumably didn't pay a deposit to become Impact World Champion, or maybe she did. However, if she did, it certainly wasn't for $150,000, which is the figure that she apparently said to Impact, yo, if you want your belt back now that I'm leaving, pay me $150,000. This comes to us via Twitter user BeltFanDam, who is a well-connected person within kind of like the belt-making community in pro wrestling and stuff, and really well-informed and so forth. Basically Tessa said, give me that money. Impact went, we're not giving you $150,000, you silly sausage. So actually what they did was they went out and had new belts made. So they debuted them at Slammiversary. The new belts have silver plating rather than gold. There's also another interesting snippet here about the TNA Championship that Moose is carrying around. Apparently, that thing is a counterfeit belt imported from Pakistan. So that's an interesting little slice of, very TNA behavior from Impact Wrestling there. But man, $150,000? What has Tessa Blanchard been smoking in lockdown? Because that's absurd.
Just once again, we talk about Tessa Blanchard a lot. She's one of the hottest free agents, I'd say, in wrestling today. Although she does come with a great deal of baggage, but she's really not helping her case for prospective employers. Seeing her do stuff like this too. I know she's. There's this whole what is it called? I want to say hold harmless. That's what Triple H and Seth Rollins had before WrestleMania. She can't talk ill of her former employees, but she can apparently extort them for $150,000 for their own belt. I've no idea what's going to happen from this. Although, as you know, Andy, I do have my own sources who don't like to reveal themselves on this, and they give me little tidbits of information every now and again. Apparently, she threatened if they didn't give her that $150,000, she was going to put the belt in the bin. So, that's what my sources are saying.
Spending a lot of time with Uncle Alan, has she?
Right, let's talk about Vince McMahon and his sleep schedule. He didn't really sleep a lot, of course, hence why WWE does the things it does a lot of the time. But apparently he isn't losing too much sleep as a result of WWE's declining ratings. This is according to a new report from Paul Davis of WrestlingNews.co. Vince McMahon, whilst everyone else is panicking, they're doing 1.5s and stuff for Monday Night Raw. Everything's basically dropped below 2 million for their major shows. He has kind of just shrugged off these falling ratings. He thinks everything is going to go back to normal after SummerSlam, of course, taking place on the 23rd of August. It's going to go back above 2 million. He's just looking past all that. They believe that they are going to be allowed crowds back around sort of September. That's what he's so optimistic about it all. And the write-up also notes, probably more important than all of this, that the USA Network and Fox are both satisfied with how Raw, SmackDown, and NXT are performing. And that, quote, everyone knows things will get better. You sense, Andy, that is the reason why everyone isn't panicking quite as much. Everything's dropped in ratings. Not just WWE, AEW, across the board. We've seen a decline as a result of the ongoing global bastard, the lack of fans, etc., etc. And you sense that they think that it's just going to go back to normal, basically.
Yeah, a lot of people have this assumption, and Vince McMahon obviously has a lot more data available to make that assumption, and so do the TV networks than we do. So that maybe holds a bit more sway. But I can't personally, and this is just my gut, I can't shake the feeling that a lot of people who were habitually watching wrestling, as in they weren't all that engaged, but it was just a thing you do every Monday and Friday night, and you've done it for decades. a lot of people might have stepped away from it in this empty arena era, realised that they don't miss it that much and maybe not come back. I mean, I don't know. I don't have any data to support that. It's just a hunch. It's just an idea to throw out into the world, and we can discuss it and debate it and pick it apart and so forth. I'm really interested to see what happens when things do go back to normal flow, because I think we'll see a big spike, at least for the first 2 weeks. It'll come back down and settle somewhere and continue on a more steady trajectory. What kind of trajectory are we going to have, Phil? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I know I just said that the fans are expected to return around September. I reckon WWE will be doing everything they can to try and persuade the necessary people to get fans in for that Raw after SummerSlam. And do some big things there, because I sense that's what they're going to try and use as their springboard to go forward into the fall, towards Survivor Series, of course, Royal Rumble, and then we're back into WrestleMania season. And I reckon they're just going to go, right, everything we were going to do at WrestleMania 36, we're just going to do it at 37, okay? Because let's just pretend 2020 never happened. Right, let's move on to your Twitter questions. At WhatCulture WWE, of course, you want to get in touch with us. First question today comes from Matt Rains, who says, "Hey gents, since you both know what it takes to be a legend," he knows how to get his questions asked on the news. You don't have to, butter us up, but it does help. Who is the next legend Vince will bring in to try and boost ratings? Have a great day, guys. Hashtag this is news. You have a great day too, Matt. Of course, we saw Ron Simmons backstage on Monday Night Raw last night, but which other legends do you think they're going to bring in? Because I sense, if, as we were reporting in that last story, they're hoping fans can come back and they want to really pop a rating, I reckon they're going to go big in September.
Yeah, I mean, well, New Japan have just ran a pay-per-view main event angle with Dick Bloody Togo. So, for me, the logical choice with all of this is that the real Kai and Tai legend, Men's Teo, comes back for a blockbuster run in WWE. My other goofball answer is obviously Gangrel. However, a serious answer is probably Sting. I know he's not under WWE contract anymore, and there's been a bunch of speculation with AEW and so forth, but you could still throw a bunch of cash his way, and I think he'd probably be willing to do business even if it's just a one-off. They've not really got many other people left, is the thing. They've done everyone else.
Yeah, I do think they're going to try everything they can once things go back to proper normal to get The Rock and Stone Cold on that show, because they know that they are guaranteed ratings draws. And it felt very surreal having Stone Cold just talk to an empty chair and Byron Saxton, basically, and The Rock. I love The Rock. I will watch almost anything The Rock is on. In terms of other stuff, Scotty Too Hotty, just give him the 24/7 championship, because I love him, and we all know he's in shape, and he has worked in the past at the least. I don't know right now, but he's worked in the Performance Centre. It's obviously we can't bring back Too Cool completely due to the sad passing of Brian Christopher, but myself and Phil Chambers will always campaign for a return of Too Cool. And finally, Undertaker, because we all know the Undertaker retiring is a work.
Kane.
Second question today comes from Jonathan Rivera. I will hold a lifelong debt for his lovely message from Peyton Royce, of course. Peyton Bloody Royce, I should say. Jonathan says, could MVP and Bobby Lashley be recruiting for a modern-day Nation of Domination? They had Shelton Benjamin, of course, join them last night, Andy Murray.
I don't necessarily think so. I think it's just a bunch of, wrestlers who haven't been used that particularly well over the past couple of years or past year or so or whatever, uniting under a guy who is just a fantastic manager and wrestler, combining the two roles in MVP. MVP's been absolutely tremendous since he came on television. He has existing chemistry with Bobby Lashley, of course, from their time in Impact Wrestling. So I think that's why they kind of meshed that partnership back together. And I just think like a guy like Shelton Benjamin, he still has quite a fair bit to offer, but he's not really on TV a whole lot. So hey, let's just bring him into this club as well. I'm curious to know what happened to Brendan Vink and Shane Thorne, because they were kind of like a MVP thing for a while, and then that just isn't a thing anymore. But I do like MVP assembling this table. He's such a good talker, and he's a really good manager character, and he could do a lot for guys who maybe aren't as refined as him on the microphone. Yeah,
I really hope they do something with Shelton Benjamin with this group, because he's so underutilised. We've talked about this on numerous occasions. Yes, he might not be the necessarily best talker out there, but with MVP as his mouthpiece, I think you got one hell of a stable there. And also, great to see Mustafa Ali back on Monday Night Raw last night. I mean, it wasn't the hottest storyline for him to do, and I've no idea who the bloody hell the SmackDown hacker is now, but We'll have to wait and see. It's probably going to be Hornswoggle. Final question today comes from Timothy Banks, who says, new feud for Seth Rollins. Rollins versus Aleister Black. Arm for an arm match. First one to lose an arm loses.
Yeah, I'm here for that. I'm 100% here for that. Imagine what WWE would do with the retcon storyline like they did with Rey Mysterio, like 2 segments after he lost the eye. Went, hey, it's probably not permanent. How are they going to do that with an arm, I wonder? Oh, we'll just sew it back on. It's fine. It's no problem. We'll be wrestling again on Monday. Don't worry, pal. I would be here for the absurdity of that. One of these days, we're going to have to do a head-for-head match, aren't we? A decapitation match in which they are both fine and well on Monday night. That's the universe we're living in at the moment.
Guarantee Al Snow is going to be special guest referee for that. Right, let's move on to today's and finally. And shout out to Death Valley Passenger, who pointed this out to us on Twitter. It was a tweet by Dominik Dijakovic last night. He's a brave man, Andy Murray. He tweeted, 2 more days until I beat the MS Paint tattoos off of Cosplay Goldberg while Sub-Zero's grandmother watches. He is, of course, facing Karrion Kross with Scarlett in his corner, Karrion's corner that is, on NXT this week. Considering I've seen what he's done to the likes of A Million Jobbers, Bronson Reed, and of course Tommy Ciampa, a brave man to tweet he's got MS Paint tattoos, he's a Cosplay Goldberg, and calling Scarlett Sub-Zero's grandmother.
A bold move indeed. I popped my wig clean off when I read this tweet. You know what this reminds me of? Have you ever seen The Thick of It?
Yes.
The final season when Malcolm Tucker's trying to describe Star Wars to Ollie in that little cafe. And he's like, what's that thing? He's got a tinfoil pal and a pedal bin and they're all made of Lego. That's what it sounds like to me. Check that clip out. It's on YouTube somewhere. It's really good. But that's what this tweet is.
The Thick of It is such a good show, but it's now become so ridiculous that we are just living in the political version of The Thick of It. Armando Iannucci couldn't write what's going on right now. But enough of all the politics. Silly wrestling tweets aside, apologies and commiserations to Dominik Dijakovic ahead of his murder on Wednesday, basically. Oh, wow. Let us know your thoughts on that and all of today's news stories in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. Myself and the Dudley Boys, reviewing Monday Night Raw a little bit later on today. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts and Twitter questions on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE. You can follow both of us on there as well. Andy, where can people get you?
At Andy H. Murray. The H stands for have a nice day.
Big stereophonics. Man. I got sunburn. I can only apologise. So I just can't talk now, apparently. At Adam Wilborn, if you want to find me on Twitter. At WhatCultureWE, as I said. But for now, thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for joining us. And we will see you soon.